Plus, André Rieu is one of the most famous and well-known artists in the world. The music world was shocked when André Rieu left the stage all of a sudden. Without any notice, shows were canceled in Mexico City, which left fans and the media shocked. Behind the scenes, something strange changed. His son took over without warning, which was a job no one thought would come up so quickly. What happened to cause this sudden break in a career that looked like it would never end? Is this the end of an age for André Rieu, or is it the start of something new? It's possible that there's more to this shocking move than anyone thought. Let us look more closely at what took place. A life that was based on rules. He was born in 1949 in Maastricht, Netherlands, into a family that loved music very much. A lot of people knew him as the director of the Maastricht Symphony Orchestra. He was strict and far away, and he treated his kids more like students at a music school than like kids living in his house. André was the third of 6 kids, and their house never felt safe or happy. There weren't any bedtime stories or silly laughs. His folks were very strict Catholics and didn't show affection very often. Friends weren't allowed to come over. People were told not to make noise and to keep their feelings inside. André thought that his parents never really loved him, even when he was an adult. He didn't think that was the case. He could feel it in his bones. He never got over how cold his childhood was, and it took him years of therapy to try to figure out why it had felt so empty. He finally felt alive when he was 5 years old. It wasn't the violin itself. It was the person how he learned to play. André was enthralled by his 18-year-old teacher, who was blonde and beautiful. He didn't know anything about skill or music theory, but he couldn't take his eyes off of her hands as they played. It took other kids a while to learn how to hold the bow, but André was already copying her. Instead of being told about vibrato, he learned it by watching and copying. Vibrato is the small change in sound that makes music come alive. It wasn't about getting the notes right. It was meant to make people feel something. The way he felt about music would become the most important thing in his life. When André got older, his father's strict ideas about music didn't match up with his own. André wanted happiness, color, and action. His dad thought that music should be serious and learned. When André told his father that he wanted to focus on waltzes, he told him not to bother him at all. He told him that kind of music wasn't how he raised him. When André brought home Marjorie, the woman he loved, things got even worse. Mother didn't greet her. She told her to leave and sent him back to his room like a kid. Something in him broke at that moment. He never came back at that leaving the house with Marjorie. Even when he was selling out arenas all over the world, his parents never went to a single show. His father died in 1992, so he never got to see the success his son had built. But André didn't give up after being turned down. It pushed him. André noticed something strange while playing in his dad's orchestra. A lot of the players were just sort of moving their bodies. They talked about how tired they were, the weather, or how much money they were making. They were no longer interested in music. It was only a job. Then something would change. During the encore, a Johann Strauss dance would be played, and the room would change all of a sudden. People in the crowd would smile, the mood would improve, and the show would finally feel like it was alive. At that point, André made his choice. He didn't want to follow the rules or please doubters. He wanted to make people happy. He once played for a woman who was dying. She hadn't looked at anything in days. She opened her eyes, though, as André played a soft, simple piece. He knew exactly what music could do in that quiet moment. He took a chance in 1978. In the beginning, he didn't have any real money and was 29 years old. Still, he got together a few players to form the Maastricht Salon Orchestra, a small group. They played at parties, in small towns across Germany and Belgium, and anywhere else that would have them. It was just chairs, sheet music, and hope. Nothing fancy, but it was enough to start. From there, André began to build an orchestra that would tour the world, make classical music popular, and turn his quiet childhood into a job full of joy. That night, everything changed. André Rieu was playing old waltzes, forgotten melodies, and salon music that does not have much of a place in modern society. There is no glitz, just squeaky chairs, low ceilings, and a few claps in town rooms that aren't well lit. He didn't mind, though. He was happy with this life, even though no one was looking at it. He played Franz Lehar's Gold and Silver Waltz one night in the middle of a simple show. He put everything he had into it, like he was playing for his life. and the music seemed to play back for the first time. That moment changed his life in a quiet way. He also didn't care that people thought waltzes was silly. He didn't mind that the rich and powerful treated them like they were from another time. He thought that classical music didn't have to be stiff or sad. It might be colorful, fun, and happy. He was set on making everyone else believe it too. He was almost 40 years old by 1987. He had been in charge of the Maastricht Salon Orchestra for almost 10 years, but something wasn't quite right. The old style, the small shows in the quiet rooms. Things were beginning to feel like a cage. It was bigger what he wanted. He wanted more than just to play. His plan was to put on a show. He thought about a stage where music would grab people and make them feel alive. And he thought of Johann Strauss himself, dancing across the stage while playing the violin and directing. It was like he was a part of the music. That is what André wanted: fun, excitement, and magic. But he had to start over in order to do that. It meant hiring skilled musicians, which would cost a lot of money. It meant going completely out of the box, even though they knew that classical music wasn't usually open to big new ideas. It was clear to him, though, that this was the next thing he had to do. The Johann Strauss Orchestra played for the first time on New Year's Day 1988, not even 12 players. There were only a few people there, but the mood was very different. The old rules were thrown out, so there would be no more stiff, silent shows. He put on bright clothes for the music. He made the stage look like a theater. He made jokes with everyone. People who played the music and the music itself danced. People who didn't like it said it was cheap and looked like a show, but the crowd didn't care. They kept coming back, clapped harder, and laughed louder. Something real had been touched by André. Critics didn't have to agree with him. He already had the people. The big match in the Champions League in May 1995 changed everything. André Rieu and his orchestra came out on the field during halftime when the crowd was expecting commentary or breaks, and played Shostakovich's Waltz No. 2. It may have seemed like an odd choice for a football game. It wasn't just any dance, though. The Dutch fans already knew the song from a TV ad. As the stadium filled with music, a strange event took place. 50,000 sports fans all started swaying at the same time. That short time, it didn't feel like a ball game. It felt like a party to honor life. André Rieu and his orchestra played live in front of cameras, and the sound of a dance could be heard in 300 million living rooms across Europe. Not long after, Rieu was known for more than just his music. He became well known. His records, Strauss & Company, sold a lot of copies all of a sudden, even though they hadn't sold much the year before. He sold 200,000 CDs in just a few weeks. It went straight to #1 in the Netherlands and stayed there for 19 weeks. Not only did it top the charts, it sold more copies than any other album in the country that decade. Then, something strange took place. People who had never been interested in violins, waltzes, or anything classical began to wait in line for seats. After buying the records and going to the shows, they became crazy about melodies that were once thought to be out of date. Many people thought that night was the last time Rieu was just a musician. He became a big deal in pop culture. Some people were pleased, but not everyone was happy. Things got tense in the world of classical music. Some people said that he was watering down the art. They said that he was making the music sound cheap. One well-known conductor didn't hold back when he said that Rieu's shows were nothing but indecent music. They didn't like anything. The jokes on stage, the sparkly clothes, the bright lights, and the huge sets. They thought it looked more like a Las Vegas circus than a concert. That people were dancing in the aisles, that was the last insult. Rieu didn't move, though. He made it clear that he didn't want to play for a small group of stiff experts sitting in a performance hall. He thought that everyone could enjoy the music, including kids, teachers, janitors, grandmothers, and anyone else who wanted to feel good. The numbers also supported him. Only in the Netherlands did his album Strauss & Company sell 750,000 copies. It made it into the top 5 in Germany, which is very uncommon for a classical record. In the end, it sold more than 3 million copies around the world, selling more than Celine Dion and Bon Jovi in some countries. Rieu didn't just get a lot of people to come, he also changed how people bought music. In order to keep up with demand, record shops started making more room for classical sections. People who work in the field even named it the Rieu effect. Executives at Universal Music confirmed what everyone already thought. His albums were selling more copies than those of any other classical act. It was an entire business plan, and it all began with a brave choice in 1987. He named his band after Johann Strauss at that point. At the time, some people thought he was acting silly and maybe even cocky, but he wasn't trying to take Strauss's name away. He wished to make it live again. In the 1980s, Strauss's waltzes were rarely played at public events. They were no longer being played. Strauss's music had been performed 16 times more than in 2000, though, by 2010, a big part of that rise could be traced back to Rieu. From a small group of 12 players, it had grown to over 60, which was bigger than Strauss's group ever was. Strauss's death was 100 years ago in 1999. To honor the occasion, Rieu released a tribute record in which he talked about how much the composer had influenced his life. Even the government of Austria stepped in and gave Rieu one of its greatest national honors for preserving the music of Austria. Then he did something even better in 2008. It wasn't just music this time. It was a full-blown dream. Rieu built a huge copy of Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna and toured with it. It was more than just a background. This house was bigger than anything the Rolling Stones had ever taken around the world. Rieu had a simple goal. He wanted people who couldn't afford to go to Vienna to still be able to enjoy its beauty. The size was crazy. 6 days and 100 people worked to set up the stage for every show, but people loved it. More than 38,000 people packed into the Telstra Dome in Melbourne to see him play. It was Australia's biggest classical show ever. Nearly 90,000 people came to all 3 shows in that city alone. The same thing happened in Europe. Every venue and city was full. At one point, 8 of the top 10 spots on the Australian charts were taken by his DVD. Rieu's shows were more than just events. They became famous all over the world. His tours were so popular that they put him in the top 10 of the world's highest-grossing tours, right behind Madonna and the Cops. He did it all with a violin, hit songs that went platinum, and a sudden disaster. André Rieu was breaking records for someone who was known as the King of the Waltz. His DVD and record sales were crazy, and he won more than 500 platinum awards for them. Not a single other traditional musician had even come close. Universal Music honored the success with a chrome violin trophy that was made just for it. They said it was the most unique thing they had ever seen in the music business. Rieu was the best in a type of music that not many people were interested in anymore. But in 2016, things took a very sad turn behind all the glitz and camera flashes. A sad event happened during a tour of the UK that was meant to be a happy Christmas tour. Longtime trombonist for Rieu, Ruud Murax, died suddenly in his sleep while the band was in Leeds. He had been Rieu's friend for over 20 years. His wife was there with him. She plays the violin in the same group. When they got home, their 2 kids were waiting for them. The group was very upset by the news. Rieu canceled the show in Nottingham right away and put off the rest of the UK trip. London, Birmingham, Manchester, and Glasgow are no longer on the plan. This wasn't just a loss for Rieu at work. He often said that his group was like a family, and that time he really meant it. A lot of his players had been with him for decades. Sad to lose someone so close to Christmas was almost too much to handle. The body of Merckx was taken back to the Netherlands. 3 months later, when Rieu finally went back to the UK, the mood had changed. Even though there was less people, the music and show were still great. What happened was still fresh in my mind. For Rieu, the pace had changed too. Rieu was 74 years old in March 2024, but he still moved and sang like he was half his age. Things quickly got worse when he got back to Mexico City, though. His body gave out after only 2 shows. Jet lag, being at a very high altitude, and having the flu all hit at the same time. Mexico City had never felt so high, even though it was more than 2,000 meters above sea level. Even his musicians had a hard time. A lot of the artists said they were tired and had nosebleeds. But Rieu's symptoms were the worst. He had a fever and felt dizzy. He talked about it later and said it made him feel like he was 100 years old. That night, behind the scenes, he called his wife and told her something he had never been afraid to say before. He didn't want another music day to be like that one. This was the first time the man who never missed a show had to back out. 40,000 fans missed it. But what was more important was that Rieu finally spoke what his body had been telling him for years. He couldn't force himself to do this. This wasn't a one-time scare. In 2010, he lost his balance because of a virus in his inner ear, which kept him off the road for months. In 2019, he acted even though he had a high fever because he wouldn't let the crowd see anything less than perfect. Mexico was not like that, though. He really wasn't sure if he could finish, and he was honest about it for once. When Rieu got back to Maastricht, he didn't just rest. He made a promise to himself: hurt people no more for the sake of custom. A lot of the business was already run by his son Pierre, but he went one step further. There would be no more world trips. There will be no more fast flights from one region to another. Instead, they began planning shows with careful timing, less travel time, and better logistics. Pierre was no longer just a boss, he became the guardian. Behind the scenes, he had already been taking some of the stress off of his dad's back. He was in charge of the team, dealt with the chaos, and made sure everything ran smoothly. Rieu had always wanted to be in charge of everything, but now he had full faith in Pierre. The bond between them grew stronger after each illness and emergency. Rieu was able to keep going safely because Pierre had become his support without saying much. The Romanian kids and the fine arts. But not all storms were about you. There was a big fuss in Rio in 2015 that had nothing to do with illness or praise. It took place at one of his shows in Maastricht in the summer. That night, 11 kids from a Romanian group led by the famous pan flute player Gheorghe Zamfir joined his show. At first, everything looked fine. On stage, the kids smiled, the crowd clapped, and the music kept going. But the Dutch government saw something else. They gave Rieu a €236,000 fine because they said he let children work past their legal hours. It was one of the biggest fines for culture in Dutch history. The team for Rieu didn't give up. They said that technically, the kids hadn't played. For legal reasons, they said the kids were just there during the show and not part of the performance. The court battles went on for almost 2 years, but in the end they agreed with André. The fine was thrown out because he wasn't their boss. Still, the whole thing left a small stain on his image. Some critics were surprised by the case because it made them wonder how big productions handled child actors. People knew about André Rieu's kindness, but he never made a show of it. People with mental disabilities who were in a music group had all of their instruments stolen in 2019. He read about it in the paper.